Putting a build together in Destiny 2 isn't difficult, but making one that's super effective is a completely different story. In today's video, we're going to break down a Warlock build that will carry you through the Season of Arrivals and beyond. Let's get started. Destiny 2's combat is fast and rambunctious, so all the best builds have a playstyle that meets or exceeds the natural pacing of the game. For this Warlock setup, we'll be using the Attunement of Hunger, the bottom branch of the Voidwalker subclass. This gives us access to the Devour and Insatiable skills. Kills while Devour is active will completely refill our health, reduce the cooldown of our grenade, and extend the duration of the Devour buff. This will help us deal with the hordes of enemies that the game throws at us. For our exotic armor piece, the Felwinter's Helm will provide us with great crowd control and debuffs when we're deep in the action. Its exotic perk, Warlord's End, causes melee ability kills or finishers to create a burst of energy that weakens enemies. Weakened enemies take increased damage, and they're unable to fight back for a few seconds, and the radius of the effect is increased based on the rank of the enemy killed. In other words, minors provide a small radius and duration, while mini-bosses provide a larger radius and duration. Next, our weapon selection is going to be partly defined by the champion enemies we're going to fight in different content. Unfortunately, not every weapon can use champion mods because the game's developers don't want me to play the way that I want, but we still have a lot of solid options. The Season of Arrivals artifact gave us access to anti-barrier rounds on assault rifles and submachine guns, so I'll be using a kinetic submachine gun for that. Next, we can use the Unstoppable Pulse Rifle mod on our gloves to grant whatever pulse rifle we equip unstoppable rounds during sustained fire. I'll be using the exotic pulse rifle, the Graviton Lance, for that. Finally, in my heavy slot, I'll be switching between Temptation's Hook and the Falling Guillotine depending on the content I'm in. Both of these swords were released with the Season of Arrivals, and they're both very powerful. Temptation's Hook has a ranged attack that deals heavy damage when your sword energy is full, but it consumes 8 ammo instead of the usual 4, which means you gain quality of life with a ranged attack, but you lose out on a lot of efficiency. On the flip side, the Falling Guillotine's heavy attack hits all enemies in a small radius around your character, but like most other swords, it can only be used in melee range. So, our goal for this setup is to get into the thick of the action, slay enemies fast, and use our melee ability and finisher to crowd control and debuff the ones we can't immediately destroy. Now, with all of that said, we're going to head out into the field to test out and examine things a little bit closer. Before we get into the gameplay, I wanted to show off the different weapons that I have equipped as well as their roles. You may not be able to get the exact stuff that I have, but there are alternatives available in the game. You'll just have to grind for them and figure out what you want to use for yourself. For me, I've got the Cold Front SMG. This was available in the 2019 Christmas event. It has Kill Clip, Zen Moment, and a flared magwell. Its reload is a little bit slow and chunky, but it does amazing damage with every magazine, so if I do need to burst down a major enemy, I can focus them pretty quickly with the Cold Front, especially if the enemy is debuffed with the Felwinter's Helm. The Falling Guillotine role that I'm going to be using for today's gameplay is the role that you get from the Season Pass, so it's got Whirlwind Blade and Energy Transfer. I'm not going to make use of Energy Transfer much at all, but Whirlwind Blade is very valuable for increasing our damage. Last but certainly not least, I'm using a series of Charged with Light mods to increase the effectiveness of my guns even further. High Energy Fire, while charged with light, you gain a bonus to weapon damage. Each defeated combatant consumes 1 stack of Charged with Light. And in order to become charged, I'm using Swift Charge, become charged with light by rapidly defeating combatants with pulse rifles, sidearms, or submachine guns, and taking charge. Become charged with light by picking up orbs of light. So when I do need to fight at range using the Graviton Lance, if I get multi-kills, then I will increase the damage of the weapon, which will make subsequent kills a little bit easier to get. Same goes for my submachine gun. When it doesn't have Kill Clip active, I can get some multi-kills, get charged with light, I reload. Now I've got Kill Clip stacked on top of the damage bonus from Charged with Light, and I will absolutely shred through whatever target I'm shooting at. It feels very good to get all of this stuff rolling, though it can be difficult to get it all rolling simultaneously, but it's nice to have it there. Also, I'm using sword scavengers and sword ammo finders to make sure I have enough heavy ammo for when I need to chop enemies to bits. Alright folks, for today's testing we're diving into the Insight Terminus Nightfall Strike in the classic Nightfall playlist. So we're not going to have to deal with any champions, but this is a sufficiently challenging environment. It's going to put the build through its paces. The main thing that we're going to want to do with our setup is play very aggressively, because we're not going to get to take advantage of the really cool effects of the Felwinter's Helm if we don't push in and get those melee kills and get those finishers. So whenever the opportunity presents itself for me to run in and use a finisher on an enemy to get that massive crowd control and the damage buffs as well, I'm gonna take it. But I also can't be silly about how I push in, because there are some instances where I'll be running into a firing squad and I'll die before I get to use a finisher or a melee ability, and it just won't work. Like right here, the enemies will destroy me if I leave cover and push up too aggressively, so I'm gonna have to sit back and pew them a little bit from range, but that's okay. The Graviton Lance does a great job of picking off enemies from far away, especially when you get those explosive kills to chain together nicely. And add to that the fact that I have the charged with light and high energy fire, so if I do get double kills, then my damage will get increased a little bit. Now, unfortunately for this last enemy, I'm not going to get to debuff him with the Felwinter's Helm because there's nothing around. So we're not going to get to see the increase in DPS that we gain from applying that debuff to him, but he is very easy to take down with our sword. When he gets ready to do his stomp, we just raise our guard and then we start chopping him up. Easy peasy. For this next bit, the enemies are creating that firing squad effect again, and it's going to be difficult for me to push in, but I really do want to push in so I can make use of all the different effects that I have. So I'm going to have to find a really nice opportunity to get a finisher and then start chaining together the effects of the Felwinter's Helm and Devour. So you got a big crowd of enemies. I'm going to go in. They've all been crowd controlled, and we can take them out at our leisure. Especially once we've crowd controlled the wanted enemy. He's taken additional damage from all of our sword swings while he is debuffed, and then he's not going to fight back. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So that's the beauty of Felwinter's Helm, is when there are major and mini boss level enemies mixed in with the trash enemies, with the red bars and the smaller enemies, then you can pick off one minor enemy with a finisher or a melee ability, and then all of a sudden the big guy has been debuffed, these little guys are crowd controlled, and you can focus the large target very quickly and very effectively. It's the additional damage that the enemies take is phenomenal. And you might be thinking, oh, double primary is going to be kind of weak, but submachine guns have pretty solid DPS considering they are using primary ammo. So I don't feel particularly weak because of that decision. Let's go ahead and trigger Devour again so that we can get our health back every time we get a kill. I want to run in and get the Felwinter's proc. This guy is unfortunately up in the air, so I can't really do anything to him with my sword until he comes down. But once he does, he's still debuffed, and he's going to get absolutely obliterated. It's a strong combination, man, and this is something I would wholeheartedly recommend bringing into even the most difficult content in the game, but obviously be a bit more careful when you go into Legend, Master, and Grandmaster level content, because the enemies are going to they're going to hit harder, so you're going to have to really finesse if you want to push in and apply that debuff to everything. But that debuff is not just going to help you, it's going to help your teammates as well. Now over here we've got kind of a perfect scenario brewing. There is a mini boss enemy that is being guarded by two major enemies, and if they cluster together enough like they are now, then the mini boss will get debuffed. But unfortunately he keeps flying up in the air when he is debuffed, but thankfully we get to apply it a second time so we can just burst him down incredibly quickly. No contest. Alright, and finally we are at the boss, and we are using a sword, so we are going to have to really finesse things if we want to come out on top. But against grounded bosses, a sword is a very practical and powerful weapon if you are good with the timing on the blocks. All you got to do is wait for them to do their stomp attack, and then when they do, you just raise your guard and hopefully time it correctly. And if you don't, because I'm playing as Devour, I can chow down on my grenade and restore my health. But because we got some ads spawning, we're going to have to clear these guys out a little bit. And then once they have been taken care of, I can head back over to the main boss and continue dealing with him. There we go. We managed to finesse the Felwinter's Helm effect right at the end there on the boss. We killed one of the ads with a finisher, and then it debuffed the main boss, and then I was able to hit him with a Nova Bomb for some big damage. It's not always possible to get that finesse, but when it does happen, it feels really good. And we're getting pushed very aggressively here, but one quick kill is going to clean things up nicely for us. Ooh, there we go. Everything is coming together. All the different components of the setup are working in the exact way that I want them to. The control that I'm gaining over the objective when things push in is phenomenal. Unfortunately, I'm in a bad rotation right now, so I'm not really able to keep the point clear. And these ads spawn indefinitely. This is going to be a bit of a struggle, but I think you guys get the idea. We're done. And there we go. That's going to do it for the build for today. I would wholeheartedly recommend taking it into whatever content you come across. Crowd control and debuffs are always valuable to you. So as always, if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to support the channel more than you already do just by watching, liking, subscribing, and commenting, you can head over to patreon.com/iBluairJgR to become a patron. As always, the name of the game is Destiny 2. The name of the channel is iBluairJgR. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.